Welcome to All Things Chiropractic.
Well, welcome to another episode of All Things Chiropractic. I'm Paul Andrews.
Dr. Mark Davini.
Okay, so today we've got a question for you out there. What is in your go bag?
Well, my go bag has at least 2 alternative passports, currency in many different countries. Oh, you mean that go bag? No, not my. Okay,
Wake up.
Wait, no, not that go bag. My compliance go bag, my chiropractic go bag. Okay, all right, I get it.
My wife would have snacks in her go bag for sure.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I used to be addicted to Swedish fish. That would have been in my go bag. I said, so
but don't you like them stale or whatever?
Oh,
hard?
No. That was my peeps. I used to like my peeps rock hard,
Yeah.
But my fish was always one of those things I told people I ate fish every day. They just happened to be red and Swedish.
Wouldn't you be in the store like feeling the bag to make sure they were the right texture,
Absolutely.
consistent?
Absolutely.
Like
my sister
like there was a big difference?
Every Easter she sends me my peeps, but she sends them with the package open and she bought them at least 2 months before.
Well, there's a lot of TMI already off the bat. Okay.
I know. So those would be in my go bag in the old days, but I am definitely off all processed sugar as best I can at this point. So my go bag, to answer the question way back when you first asked it, we're talking about what to do when you have an emergency. And as part of your compliance, and we say this all the time, and it's part of onboarding with all compliance, is that you should have an emergency action plan.
It really came to light very dramatically with these LA fires. When we look at the devastation of, more than 12,000 homes, businesses, schools destroyed. I mean,
gone,
done. More than 40,000 acres. It just, and of course, the loss of life, more than a couple dozen people already. It's a tragedy for sure. And you look at that, and I said to myself, imagine you're seeing this fire starting to encroach on your business, your property, and you have really no way to handle it yourself. But I guess if there's a silver lining, you have an opportunity to decide what can you transport, what can you save when you have to evacuate.
Hopefully. I mean, there are natural disasters that don't have any warning. All of a sudden, tornado, boom, it's there. So when you have that opportunity to take a moment and decide where and what and how, that's the wrong time to start thinking about what should I take? What should I grab? What's to do here?
So I would sort of cut it up into 2 different scenarios. What's in my go bag when I have no opportunity? I just have to go. What? And we're talking about professionally now, right? So you're in your business and you say to yourself, if I had to go on literally a moment's notice, what am I grabbing? What should I take that is irreplaceable, because my life certainly isn't replaceable. But if there's something or some things that are going to make rebuilding easier, what do you think that would be?
Yeah. Most people, when asked that question in the older days, would say their photos. They're irreplaceable. And so when you say, okay, that's nice, except that in the course of my lifetime, I can think of at least 6 bins of photo albums that I've had through my life. So the answer to that would be, get them electronic. Be paperless. So I do. I have all
You
my
are
photos.
dating yourself, because most people, it's on their cell phone. So
but I'm going to bring it
probably your cell phone, right?
I'm going to bring it up to date, though. I have spent the last 10 years of my life becoming completely paperless, to include scanning my childhood photos. So everything in my life is already in my
Can we post any of those photos for our listeners?
But
Baby Mark,
if you watched one of our other podcasts about breach, it's probably my only worry.
Yeah, right. Well, certainly cell phones would probably be on everyone's list as number one thing that they're going to make sure they have, right? Because they're just, it's hard to live without them.
But what's the emergency, quoting an old TV show? Who you going to call? And I'll add, when you can't call.
I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm so young. I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So it's always assuming cell service is there.
Yeah. Well, but even if it's not, you've got your photos in there and other stuff.
Yeah,
so,
someone else will have access to them, right?
Yeah. Well, I would definitely take that. But,
Right.
thinking about that emergency action plan of when you have no notice and it's a grab and go situation, what and where is that going to be, grabbed in your office? Like, what would you say would be good? Like, these are things that you definitely should take.
Well, again, if you have any kind of hard backups of anything, they should be readily accessible, because at least you can run out with your office on a huge flash drive or something like that. Of course, today a lot of it is stored in the cloud, or you have cloud-based programs, so you will still be able to restore that information. But what about things just to think about? What about things like your diplomas? Mine is scanned, by the way.
But I don't. Do colleges provide replacements to diplomas?
They generally don't. It's very, very difficult. So unless you have memorialized those diplomas in any other way, you're certainly not going to go running around your office and grabbing photos off the wall. But you would definitely want to make sure that you have some level of secure backup for all your hardware, all your computers. You need to have some type of backup so that you know that my life isn't sitting in that box and only in that box. It's important. Things like videos, things like pictures, these are all cloudable at this point. So think about it as a process.
When we think about backups, right, when you're in that zero opportunity to think about it, you got to just grab and go. And you say, well, okay, my backup's in the cloud, but is everything backed up in the cloud? Like, what if you take digital x-ray? That's a huge amount of memory.
Right.
Most of the digital x-rays, the setups that come, it's not a cloud backup that is included. It's a local backup or a mirrored drive. And you have to think about that way ahead of time, because if you tried to sync that backup on your way out, it's going to take a few days probably to back up all those x-rays.
And imagine this all done in a matter of minutes. So what we're trying to say here is that everything needs to be thought out in advance, and everything has to be prepared for this event, and you have to actually have training so that everybody is aware of what to do. One of the things we always make people do in compliance is to have an emergency action plan, of course. And one of the simplest things would be to have the emergency action plan printed out at your front desk with live numbers, real numbers, not 911, your ambulance, your police, your fire, your poison control. Actual numbers.
You did just get married recently, so poison control probably at the top of the list for you, right? Love you, Diane.
Not yet.
It's on my refrigerator. That's all I can tell you.
There we go. Not yet. But that it's important to have procedure. Do you have an awareness of who's in charge? All of a sudden, you got 5 people yelling where to go, what to do, and how to do it. And that's not the way an emergency action plan works. You're supposed to have this one coordinator, and you're supposed to know where everybody is to meet. Imagine if there was a fire in your office. You have 7 staff members, and they all go running out of the building and go somewhere else. And the first thing the fire department...
And nobody's looking for you.
No one's looking for me. I am all by myself. And the first thing the fire department asks is, where's Mark? No,
right.
Where is everybody out of the building? You've seen it on TV 1,000 times. So you need to have that place where everybody meets, and you'll say, everybody's supposed to meet here. Whoever's not here may be in the building. Simple things like that. We tell people all the time they have to have emergency exit maps in all of their spaces, that if I was sitting in that room with the doors closed, can I see the emergency exit? And they all look at me or say something to me like, really? Seriously? I said, yeah. Well, you know your office. The patient doesn't necessarily know it, which means they're sitting in a room and on the other side of that door is solid smoke. They need to be able to open that door and know which way to turn. That's why these things exist. So when we talk about emergency action plan, it's not just making sure you have your software. We're talking about how to make sure you and everyone that's in that office can get out safely.
So not every disaster is natural.
Mm-hmm.
There are disasters that happen in the office.
Daily.
Right. I've got a few in my mind that, that have happened to colleagues or members. More than one has had a flood.
Mm-hmm. And where is their computer a lot of the times?
Right on the floor.
Right on the floor. Right.
That actually happened to me. I don't know if I ever told you this story. When I opened the billing company 20 plus years ago, we were on the third floor of an office building. And it was an office building that had a wet sprinkler system. And I had a flood on the third floor. Twice. Because when that sprinkler head, which was out in the hall, burst, not on purpose, not because there was a fire.
Oh my God.
The amount of water that was coming out of that sprinkler head system was immense, and it flooded my entire 1,200 square feet. Guess where my computers were?
On the floor.
And back then it was all paper files. Guess where they were?
On the floor.
It was all on the floor, the third floor. So poor guys below me, they got drenched too, but and it was amazing.
Yeah, and people, to piggyback off that, I lived in a high-rise in downtown Boston, and a person on the other end of the building, thank God, thought that these sprinkler heads were a good place to hang his clothes.
Yeah.
And he did.
I'm kind of
until it just went off. And the amount of water that came out of that one sprinkler head, and then the subsequent ones that it kicked off, filled up the elevator shaft to the 9th floor.
Wow.
That particular elevator was flooding with water. When you ran outside, there was an emergency drain, in a sense, for that elevator shaft. And it was pouring out. It was maybe about a foot in diameter as far as the water pouring out of this pipe. And still, it filled it up to the 9th floor.
Were you on the 10th floor pushing the elevator button? Where's this darn thing?
Yeah. Or when you're standing in the elevator because you didn't know enough not to go in the elevator.
Right.
And you lose power.
Right.
Nice. Right.
Just asking.
Just asking. Did you ever notice the theme here? Paul's always trying to find a way for me to go away.
No, I was just asking, anyway.
Just asking.
Right. So it's a good opportunity to think about, when you have backups, have you checked them lately? I have seen more than once offices, we back up. And then something happens, they have to restore. And guess what?
Doesn't happen.
It doesn't work. I'm a big advocate of both a local, meaning on-site backup, and a cloud. And you say, well, that's kind of overkill. Who wants to do that? Why the redundancy other than, it's always good to have more than one, right? Well, have you ever tried to restore an immense amount of data over the internet? It takes a long time. So if you have the opportunity to restore it from a local drive, it's going to be a lot easier for you, your IT person, to do that and get back online quicker.
And the repercussions of not being able to get that data is huge as far as your practice goes. My personal example was many years ago when I was only on a billing computer at the time. No records at all.
Good old days.
This was back in when there were no, never mind. So the computer was actually not even a Windows computer before Windows came out. Didn't even have a mouse. Every command was a command, and you had to type it in. And it worked off 5.25-inch floppy disks, single-sided. So now we move into the first Windows computer. Wow, whoop-de-doo, we're advancing. We have a mouse and everything. And we stop backing up. Still 5.25, but we'd back up every night. And then I had a failure of my computer. Had to buy a new computer, go to restore the information. Doesn't work. Because nobody told me that when I went from my original computer program to a Windows program, I had to go from a single-sided to a double-sided density disc, 5¼ inch, which back then I had no clue even existed. And here I am trying to put my data back into the machine with floppies that just wouldn't handle the what I'm asking it to do. Took 6 hours to finally get it to work, and I swear it was just an act of God, because I've had tech people tell me it should have never worked, but one of the times it did. So when we ask someone to check their backups, we ask them to do 2 things. Number 1, make sure they have one. And number 2, make sure you can restore from it, because most people don't even know how, let alone if it works.
Yeah. Where it's held, you name it.
Yeah.
If you're under 30, you have to Google 5¼ inch floppy disk, because you probably don't know what that is.
Absolutely. And they make great Frisbees now.
Yeah. Right. You even find them, but
that's right.
Yeah. I think I have coasters, but the coasters look like 3.5 inch.
Right.
Well, they called them floppies, but they weren't.
They were floppies. Yeah. They were in the little plastic coverings.
Yeah.
These were truly floppy disks.
Yeah. Right. So
kind of like L5S1.
Yeah. Right. Wow. Look at you. So, if you do have that opportunity to take stuff with you, it's an evacuation order, doom is coming, but you have some time. What else might you take other than obviously backups? If it were me, I'd probably grab my whole server, to be honest, and stick it in the car.
If it's possible, for sure.
Yeah.
These are the things you have to think about. What is important to you? What's important to you may not be important to me. Certainly equipment, replaceable. Yeah. Certainly, as far as some of the mementos on the wall, maybe not so replaceable. Some of those things, those awards somebody gave you, something somebody asked for, that was very special, or, the little statuette that somebody gave you because they handmade it, or, all of these things. You have to decide what's important, because you won't have the time to decide when it happens.
Yeah. So evaluate that, because, I could stick, an Avant laser in my pocket and go. Those are expensive. I could, put an activator in my pocket and go. Those things are easy and certainly they're replaceable, but they're expensive, right?
Right.
That, of course, being from the insurance end of things, I'm thinking to myself, when's the last time you evaluated your insurance coverage? It almost sounds like a commercial's coming, but I swear it's not.
Yeah.
Put a gun to my head to make me do an insurance commercial.
Oh my God. Yeah. I was getting ready to pull a plug on this one. Yeah.
Guess we just decreased our monetization possibility on this podcast, but okay. But anyway, think about that. They do recommend you take your phone and do a video, or still shots. Video is probably better, of your office and what you do have, because, when it comes to replacing that, it can always be a challenge with trying to get those.
Well, it's important to have an inventory, because somebody's going to ask you how many tables you had and how many computer stations did you have. But let's back it up. Let's back it up a little bit and say, okay, it's not a devastating emergency. It's just something else going on in your office, which is all part of the emergency action plan. You have a patient in your office, we'll say 67 years old. I remember that. 67 years old.
Been a while, huh?
And all of a sudden they show all the signs of a heart attack. So guess what? I did my CPR course. I know how to perform CPR. I'm good, right? Which would be one thing you want to make sure happens. Now you're over this patient who's lying on the floor of your office, and you have to decide if you do CPR on this person or not. And a good friend of mine who was an EMT, his advice was saying, if you're not breaking ribs, you're not doing it correctly. So now all of a sudden you have to make this decision, save his life and give him months and months of agony, possibly, which we all know CPR isn't quite as reliable as they make it look on TV. Or what if I just had an AED, an automatic external defibrillator? Slap the pads on, hit the on button, and wait for it. Wouldn't that be a lot better? All around. Now, back when they were $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000, we probably had a reason to not have them in our office, but not anymore. They're $700, $800 you can get one. $1,200, $1,500, whatever, but they're affordable is what I'm saying. And if you had someone in your office that had an event and you didn't have an AED in your office, imagine what that would make you feel like. Something simple. For a lousy $1,500, I could have saved a life or maybe saved someone from a lot of misery. I also laugh when I walk in and I go, "Where's your first aid kit?"
Yeah, right.
Right. And then they'll go, "Oh,
here's my Band-Aids.
It's over here somewhere." Right. Then they spend the next 3 minutes searching and it's like, "Excuse me, I'm bleeding."
Yeah.
Right. And they spend the next 3 minutes searching for it. And then they pull out, like you say, this little box of Band-Aids.
Yeah.
You know, these are the things that you have to pay attention to because they're real. It happens all the time on I won't say day-to-day basis, but in your practice, it happens all the time that you need to be prepared for these kind of things.
I can tell you paper cuts are a real thing, man.
They are. And I need a Band-Aid when I need a Band-Aid.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Or fire extinguishers. I love where are your fire extinguishers? And then they start looking around. It's like, no, you need to know these things. Not only you, your staff needs to be aware of where they are and trained on how to use them. This is all part of the necessary emergency action plan, not just your go bag, but also your stay bag. What do I do if the emergency remains in my office?
And I guess keeping an eye on the bigger picture and thinking about all those devastating fires in LA, like, at the end of the day, what's most important, right? I mean, obviously life is the most important.
Life.
And when you're able to rebuild, there's a lot of grieving going on there. There's a lot of, stress. So if you have these small things prepared ahead of time, it's going to make just a little bit easier, like I don't have to worry about, do I have the data or my x-ray backed up? Do I have, my diploma or my memento that meant a lot to me? Like, yeah, you'll have all that small stuff.
I in one way or another, I have a way to memorialize it or plan on saving it if possible, but also recognize that sometimes the time is short. So when you are deciding on what it is that's important to you, you also have to prioritize. If I had the time, I'm going to go to number 1. And if I had the time, I'm going to number 2, 3, 4, so that you don't worry about grabbing the diploma off the wall and someone fell in the middle of the floor and they can't get up.
And over time, if you haven't already, a lot of people do, you'll come to realize how little you need, actually.
Exactly.
In life. I remember we had a winter storm several years ago, and the power was out in the winter for 3 days. No heat, certainly no entertainment, no lights. By day 3, my wife and I were like, we don't care about anything inside our house. We are out of here. Like, it didn't matter. All of it. Nothing. Just the clothes on our back. And we had friends that had a generator, so they had power, and we just went there. And it was eye-opening to me in the sense of what really matters and what you can and cannot live with.
Exactly. And that's what we're kind of saying is that prepare, be aware, think about it all in advance. It may be different for you. There are some things that are common to everybody, but there are definitely some unique things that you may feel are important that somebody else might judge, maybe not so important, but prioritize life above everything else and then go from there.
And sort of in wrap up and in closing, I will say that, there's been a lot of media attention about all the celebrities and wealthy people that have lost their homes. And it's devastating no matter who you are, what you are. But there have been a lot of you and me's that have lost a lot out there. Our businesses, our homes, just
things that are not recoverable.
Yeah, huge amount. So
life-changing things.
If you want to support those that are helping at the LA fires, just be careful that you go to a reputable website or a charity that will do that. The bigger ones,
right?
Probably your best bet, so that you don't, because there's a lot of sinister people that like to scam people. It's awful, so distasteful.
It is. It's so true. And what we've noticed over the years is that natural disasters just are occurring, and this type of situation comes up fairly regularly. So always just be aware of who you're working with and dealing with.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
It's important.
I guess we'll keep that as our words of wisdom, right?
Exactly. Right? Trust, but verify.
Exactly. All right. Thank you so much for listening to us for another episode of All Things Chiropractic. I'm Paul Andrews.
And Dr. Mark Davini, thank you.
Thanks for listening to All Things Chiropractic. We'd love to hear from you. Visit allthingschiropractic.com with comments, episode ideas, or questions. Or connect with us on Facebook and Instagram at All Things Chiropractic Podcast. Be sure to join Dr. Mark Davini and Paul Andrews next time for another episode of All Things Chiropractic.